He mailed taunting letters to newspapers. He drew a crosshair and called himself Zodiac. He claimed dozens of victims, but to this day, no one knows exactly who he was. What if the person who robbed your town of safety lived quietly next door? This is the story of the Zodiac Killer, a ghost who left letters instead of footprints, codes instead of names, and a trail of fear that still won't fade. The late 1960s, Northern California fog drifting over rivers, teenagers cruising under neon lights, quiet couples parked in lovers' lanes. Between December 1968 and October 1969, a series of brutal attacks erupted around the Bay Area. By the time the killer began writing to the press and police, the public faced not only murder, but a predator who enjoyed being watched. The FBI classifies the Zodiac case as a string of seemingly random, brutal murders and taunting cryptic notes that terrorized Northern California. The Zodiac is widely linked to 4 confirmed attacks in which 5 people were killed and 2 survived. The December 20th, 1968 shooting of David Faraday, 17, and Betty Lou Jensen, 16, on Lake Herman Road. The July 4th to 5th, 1969 Vallejo attack, where Darlene Ferrin, 22, was killed and Michael Mageau, 19, survived. The September 27th, 1969 Lake Berryessa stabbing, where Cecilia Shepard, 22, died and Brian Hartnell, 20, survived. And the October 11th, 1969 murder of Paul Stein, 29, in San Francisco's Presidio Heights. These attacks, plus numerous claimed victims and other suspicious deaths, formed the foundation of a case that law enforcement never closed. The Zodiac's methods varied, which made him especially terrifying and hard to profile. He used a gun in the Benicia and Vallejo attacks, a knife at Lake Berryessa, even a silence and shot method when he killed a taxi driver in San Francisco. He often attacked couples in parked cars or isolated spots, approaching quickly, sometimes using a flashlight or wearing a disguise. After several killings, he began phoning police to claim responsibility, and then escalated to sending letters and cryptograms to newspapers. The mixture of random targets, changing weapons, and deliberate public taunting made him unpredictable and lethal. What made Zodiac unique was his correspondence. Beginning in 1969, he mailed letters to the San Francisco Chronicle, Vallejo Times-Herald, and other papers, often accompanied by ciphers, symbols, a circle with a crosshair, and threats. He claimed as many as 37 victims in his letters and demanded publication of his messages, or he threatened more killings. The killer included at least 3 major ciphers: the 408-character cipher, solved in 1969, the infamous 340-character cipher, unsolved for 51 years until modern efforts cracked it, and shorter ciphers that remain controversial and partially unsolved. The 340-character cipher's eventual solution in 2020 to 2021 by cryptographers and hobbyists produced a chilling but not identity-revealing plaintext, showing how deeply this case blurred puzzles with murder. Beyond letters, the Zodiac phoned police dispatchers and reporters, sometimes boasting about murders and giving cryptic clues. The calls reinforced public fear and ensured the killer stayed at the center of media attention, an attention he seemed to crave. His symbolic signature, that crosshair-like glyph, became a terrifying brand, plastered on headlines and seared into memory. Over the decades, investigators and journalists focused on several suspects. The most well-known is Arthur Leigh Allen, an ex-teacher and convicted child molester who had circumstantial links to the case. Eyewitness misidentifications, alleged matching habits, and a Zodiac brand watch found in his effects. Despite intensive investigation, physical evidence never tied Allen conclusively to the letters or murders, and he died in 1992 without charges being filed. The case remains officially unsolved. In 2021, a group of former investigators and volunteer sleuths called the casebreakers publicly named Gary Francis Poste as their suspect, citing alleged forensic clues and a mosaic of circumstantial evidence. Law enforcement agencies, however, have not accepted a definitive, public closure based on that claim. The FBI and local agencies continue to treat leads cautiously. New claims like these periodically appear, but none have achieved consensus in the criminal justice system. Part of the Zodiac's longevity as a mystery is forensic limitation. DNA technology was primitive or non-existent in the late 1960s. Physical evidence was limited or contaminated, and the killer deliberately sought to destroy traces by mailing letters with stamps or using disguises. Some letters carried DNA samples decades later, but they yielded partial or inconclusive results that didn't provide definitive matches to suspects. Thousands of tips, dozens of suspects, and many investigative threads left the file tangled and open. The FBI has released portions of its files and still lists the case on its vault, but it has not announced a confirmed identity. Motive remains speculative. Some experts argue it was attention-seeking and performance. The killer enjoyed manipulating media and police. Others see sexual aggression and rage at couples. Attacks often targeted pairs in intimate settings. The variety of methods and the explicit taunting suggests a complex mix of power, control, and a desire for notoriety. But without a confession or definitive evidence, motive stays in the realm of informed conjecture. The Zodiac's impact went beyond the victims. He rewired how law enforcement, journalists, and communities thought about random violence. He inspired books, films, notably David Fincher's Zodiac, countless documentaries, and a subculture of amateur codebreakers and detectives. New techniques, especially in cryptanalysis and forensic genealogy, have periodically revived the case, but after more than 5 decades, the Zodiac remains a cultural and criminal enigma. He left ciphers we could solve, taunts we could read, and victims we could mourn, but he never left a name we could nail down. The Zodiac Killer turned mystery into a message that sometimes the scariest stories are the ones with no ending. If the killer is still out there in records, in old files, or in someone's memory, maybe one day the puzzle pieces will finally fit. Until then, the cipher remains, and so does the fear. If you liked this deep dive, hit like and subscribe for more true crime documentaries. Want a follow-up episode focusing on Arthur Leigh Allen, the 340 cipher solution, or the case breaker's Gary Post theory? Tell me which one, and I'll script it next.